I'm so pleased to introduce our panel to the stage. We have Marian Curry, Senior Advisor on Sustainability in BITCI, to lead our panel discussion on collective action and change, with Sinéad Patton, Chief Financial and Commercial Officer for Ireland and Regional Director for Northern Ireland of Veolia. Ciaran Foley, Managing Director of DHL Supply Chain Ireland, and Shay Walsh, Managing Director of BT Ireland. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brona, and good morning, everyone. Great to see you all again after a break we've had in the in-person meetings over the last few years. And a very big welcome to our panelists this morning, Sinéad, Ciaran, and Shay. So we've got some very thought-provoking messages from Tomás. As you can see, the research is very broad-ranging, some very big themes in there. And Tomás spoke about how we measure business and how we reward business value, what does success look like. He also spoke about the sessions we had with young leaders, which were particularly inspiring, and I think they exhorted all of us to bet on the transition. That was a phrase that really stuck out in my mind. And we also need to look at, in addition to hearing from younger people, how do we engage other members in society who aren't represented in business but are absolutely affected by business decisions. So with that, I would like to reflect on, I guess, what Tomás spoke about towards the end there, this notion of the new leadership mindset and radical collaboration and inclusion. Again, a big theme in itself. But because this morning we have Sinéad and Ciaran with us, and both of you are very much, I think, in the front line of introducing new green solutions to help our world decarbonise, and radical collaboration in the supply chain is badly needed right now. If we're to achieve those net zero targets, zero emissions, we're going to need to be working in tandem, we're going to need to be working in the same direction. So, Sinéad, I'm going to put the first question to you. How do you see, or do you see, that changing relationship between suppliers and purchasers when it comes to moving in the same direction to achieve sustainability goals?
Okay, good morning, everyone. So, Marian, within Veolia, developing solutions and sustainability and innovative solutions is part of the purpose within Veolia, so it's very much part of our journey and working collaboratively with our customers and with our suppliers we've been doing for a number of years. Right. Over those years, though, the conversation has changed. You know what I mean? People are in different stages of that journey in relation to investing in sustainability. And I think, as was called out there, it is time to invest, because if you don't invest now, then it's going to be more costly into the future. So in that, the conversation, companies are now seeing the priority of investing in sustainability, and therefore they are coming to the likes of Veolia to help them with some of their solutions across energy, water and waste, some of their sustainability solutions. I suppose what is key from those conversations is that not everyone has the answer. You do need to have expert help from outside. And in developing those solutions and implementing those solutions, again within Veolia, they implement their supply chain. We have over 10,000 suppliers that we use in Ireland to help us in developing and innovating those solutions. And in order for them to get onto even our approved supplier list, we have a rigorous process, and we've talked about that. Like, we won't just do business with anyone within a supply chain. We are carrying out a due diligence and to make sure that they're aligned with the strategy that we would want. And suppose when you talk about collaboration, and as I said, not everyone has the answer, but what you want is to work together, to develop the ideas, to come up with the solution. And you talk about radical collaboration, which is important in that we have examples within our group where people are now collaborating together, as in companies, governments and communities, but it's because they have no choice. If you look at water scarcity in the likes of Spain, they have no choice but to look at water reuse. What we want to actually do is work with our supply chain to develop the solutions now and come up with alternatives before it's too late. So that partnership piece is very important. And just then to end on a final note, within Veolia, they are investing in these solutions, but Veolia will say, like, there's probably 50% of the solutions that they haven't yet developed. And the only way you'll develop those is with partnerships with your supply chain.
So innovation is very much to the fore as well.
Exactly, and idea generation, do you know what I mean, and coming up with those solutions.
Right, thanks, Sinéad. Picking up on that point, Ciaran, in DHL, obviously, pioneering green logistics, developing green solutions. How have you found the relationship with purchasers has changed, or is it changing as you work together delivering to these sustainability goals?
Sure, I mean, yeah, absolutely it's changing. I think I work in a sector that emits 3.5 billion tonnes of CO2 into the atmosphere every year, and I work for the biggest logistics company in the world. So even in DHL, we're responsible for 33 million tonnes of CO2 emissions every year. So you can imagine that's a huge challenge for us. If we do nothing about that, by 2030, we're up over 45 million tonnes. So whilst we've set ourselves very ambitious targets, our target is to get down to less than 29 million tonnes by 2030. So that's still 29 million tonnes, I guess, and that's our customer supply chains that they're looking at. So we recognise we're a big part of the problem, and we know that we have to be a big part of the solution. So you mentioned the term, Marian, of betting on the transition.
Yeah.
So absolutely, that's what we're doing. We're investing 7 billion euros, believe it or not, in the next 7 years into green solutions. Now, a lot of that money will go into research and purchasing for sustainable aviation fuel. I noticed Thomas was talking about degrowth and areas like that, which is probably a debate for a different day, but we haven't quite got to that place yet. So we still believe that globalization is a very important part of a just society. And, you know, we firmly believe that the answer to us is not to stop moving goods around the world, but is to find a clean way to do it. So that's where the investment is going to go in the near future. We believe we can get to a balance of about 30% of biofuels in aviation fuel by 2030. That would be a game changer in itself, but we recognize that we need to get to carbon neutral logistics by 2050. So the gamble is, will our customers recognize that, to your point?
Yep.
Will they come with us? I think the challenge for us in our industry is to get the solutions developed and get them out there, because we firmly believe that our customers will want to come with us and they share our ambitions. But ultimately, if you have a more sustainable solution available, then we believe the transition will mean that everybody will have to follow suit.
Over time. And that's interesting. I think just Sinead has talked a lot about the importance of innovation, and what I'm hearing from you as well is you've talked about betting on the transition and taking a gamble, essentially, and that I think does call for bravery and saying we're going to bet, we have choices, but if we don't act, things get worse. So you have to have courage and say, this is where we're placing our bets. So I think
100%. And I think, you know, I think the key to that is the time to bet is now. So it's not to wait. I mean, if you look at, for us in Ireland, you know, the HGV sector, the heavy goods vehicle sector, is a particularly difficult area to decarbonise. And we're very clear on what our roadmap is. We actually believe the best solution we will come to eventually is hydrogen. The fact is, hydrogen trucks are not available. To be sustainable, the hydrogen trucks that we're developing has to come from green electricity. So in reality, we're looking at 2030 at the earliest, probably up to 2040 before we get to what we see as our final solution. So in the meantime, we're investing in biofuels. And you know, we're going down the road of biomethane. We see it as a bridging technology. The fact is that technology is available today. If you use the right feedstock for your AD plant, then it can be 100% decarbonised, which is amazing that we can do that right now. So I guess if we're really going to, you know, lead the change and change the perception, then we recognise that we can't let perfect get in the way of good, and we've kind of got to do it now.
Right. And Shay, from the perspective, I guess, of looking at, you know, cases for investment, how has the dialogue around the cost-benefit analysis changed in recent years to incorporate societal and environmental aspects as well, and moving away from just the focus on the cost?
Yeah, well, obviously, it was interesting looking at Tomas's profiles there in terms of moving from where we're currently at, which is focused on revenue and EBITDA, right up to degrowth, which is, again, a topic we could probably talk about in much more detail at another point. But I think the first thing for us is probably that second stage, which is to look at, you know, removing cost out of the business and sustainability at the same time. So reducing our carbon footprint. If you looked at the old telephone exchanges and the new ones, they're night and day. A room that would be filled with electronics the size of this room can be replaced now with something the size of this table, if not even smaller. That reduces the consumption of electricity. So the immediate CFO will buy into that because they go, great, less space needed. I can fill that with other activities, and we can drive revenue and growth from that. But I think it's really down to stepping back and looking at being able to look at the value of things, not just the price of them. And that is obviously a mindset shift. So I think for us, it's about ingraining the sustainability within the very top levels of the organization. And I think most of us in this room are lucky in that we probably have the size and the wherewithal to invest time in having kind of digital impact and sustainability teams or committees or whatever. And I think it's incumbent upon us to continue to really talk about that in terms of how do we improve the profitability of the organization, but also look at the values and how we ingrain them. So for us, it's about talking about sustainability at the very top level of the organization. There's 3 strategies in BT. One is obviously to create the platforms for the future. Second is around customer experience. But the third one is about leading to a bright, sustainable future. So if the CFOs, CEOs, the group people at the top of the organization talking about it, then it filters down. And we have to be talking about it, because if we're not talking about it, the people in our teams aren't going to be talking about it. So it has to become part of the discussion, and we have to begin to start ramping up the conversation around decarbonisation, around climate change, and being serious about the steps that are taken. And I think the business sustainability mark that we have, working responsibly mark, is really important for that, because it actually systemically analyzes, are you doing that? Are you not just greenwashing? And are you actually putting the steps in place to do that? So I think we will. It's easy to measure some of the costs, as I explained, in terms of getting stuff out. Now it's what value can we bring by talking about sustainability and making an impact with our employees, with our, as Sinead says, with the wider stakeholder group. I mean, the old days of just talking about shareholder value are gone. We're now talking about stakeholder value, and in that are the people that work in the organisation. For me, is the first step. Or do they believe that there's a culture where you actually talk about this and you believe it? You don't just say, this is the latest thing that we have to tick a box about to become, a company that attracts people. You actually have to work in a company that's purposeful and embed that in your culture.
Right, and you mentioned there, Jake, that multi-stakeholder view, and I'm wondering too about the, going to talk about in a moment about hearing from other voices. But before we move on to that, what role do incentives have with all of this, and linking? One of the topics Tomas spoke about was linking remuneration to achievement of ESG targets. So it's coming from the top, and it's really, you're being rewarded in line with what we say is important to our business.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's obviously not everyone's there yet, but BT Group scorecard, 10% of it is on digital impact and sustainability. So everybody from the group CEO right through the organisation has their scorecard as an element of digital impact and sustainability, and we measure that. Right. One of ours is obviously to be net zero by 2030. But to reduce our carbon emissions intensity by 87% by 2031. And we're actually at about 55%. That's from 2016 levels. Digital impact is obviously educating people and being able to get those who are not as tech savvy up the learning curve. And that's to reach 25 million people. I think we're at about 14.5 or 15 million people. So we're well on the way to the targets. And you have to everyone has to know where they are on it. They're not just, 2030 is a long way away.
Yes,
But getting closer, unfortunately, as you get older, these things start to accelerate. But, you have to be able to map it and say, there's no point if we're like a hockey stick, we're at this, but we expect everything to change between 29 and 30. It has to be happening, and you have to be on track, and everybody has to be talking about where they are. And that again starts with the leadership team from the very top of the organisation right down.
Great. And I'd put the same question to yourself, Sinead and Ciaran, in terms of incentives and measuring performance and really putting sustainability at the heart of the dialogue with employees. Sinead, do you want to?
Yeah, so within Veolia, to make sure that we are delivering on our purpose, and the purpose within Veolia is ecological transformation. All of our businesses is assessed using a multifaceted performance approach. And effectively what we're trying to make sure that we're doing is we are delivering value for our key stakeholders. And as Shay said, our key stakeholders is not just the shareholders anymore. You're talking about your clients, your employees, you're talking about society, and you're talking about the planet. And then through that approach that we have, whatever business decision we make or project that we do, we look at it through not just a financial KPI, but you look at it through other lenses, non-financial. And that's looking again at your impact on social, your impact economic and commercial. You look at it, well, what is it going to do to the environment? And and this is led from the top of our organisation, and that cascades down through then, and all of our objectives are assessed, aligned to not just purely financial measures, but also the non-financial measures, and making sure we're delivering benefit. And through that, our bonuses are linked to that. So again, you're putting some impact on to make sure that we are focusing on the right things.
Right. I really like that multifaceted performance. I think that's a great way of just addressing everything that you say is important to the business. Ciaran, is there anything you'd like to mention on this, incentives or any other?
Yeah, I guess it's similar to Shay. The main board, the Deutsche Post DHL board, has 30% of their bonuses based on ESG targets. But in terms of measuring the value, DHL deals with what we call abatement costs. So we've basically calculated the price, the internal carbon price, if you like, of saving a ton of CO2. And in typical Germanic fashion, we've even broken it down to air freight and sea freight and road freight. But what that means is if you're looking for investment, it's a big company. We operate in 220 countries around the world. So for me, for somebody like us looking for investment in Ireland, as long as we can show that it's a sustainability initiative and it acts within the parameters of those abatement costs, then actually you're good to go. And that's a good example, I think, of how we can secure investment and make sure that measurement, if you like, stays at the top of the agenda.
Great. Really interesting. I think there's so much, again, these are all really big themes, and I know we've touched even on degrowth was mentioned, and there are lots of topics here that I think will be for future conversations. I'm conscious of the time, and I really want to mention the young leaders that we spoke to during the research. And in addition to young leaders, also considering the voices that we don't always hear about in business, and again, those in society who are very affected by decisions taken by government and by business. And one of the things I think, particularly with the week that's in it and with COP, we're looking at targets that are very much into the future, 2040 and 2050. And as we were saying over coffee there, speaking for myself, I'll be well off the stage by 2050, but we're putting together plans and targets for the next generation to deliver on. So it begs the question, how well are we preparing them for that challenge? And something I'd like to, again, just throw out to all of you, how are you making space for young voices and other voices, and how are you enabling them to influence your business direction, your business strategy?
Yeah, I guess for me, obviously, I'm a lot younger than most of the CEOs in Ireland, so I will be here to deliver it. But but no, I think for us, I look at our grad program in DHL, and we desperately need these guys, and it's probably trite to say that we're relying on them to deliver it, but the reality is we used to always put the grads straight into operations or into business development roles or one of the functions or whatever. Now we make sure that they do a stint in the sustainability team, and that's important for a number of areas for us. I mean, first of all, as we know, we're all competing for this talent anyway, so we need to show them that their organisation has a meaningful purpose. But in reality, it's their skill set and the leadership mindset change that you're talking about that we're going to be relying on. And I look at some of these projects we do now, even with our recent biomethane project, the collaboration that's required is extraordinary, and it's stretching all of us to a degree that we wouldn't have realised before. And we're working with all sorts of businesses, be they bioenergy businesses or gas companies or traders or hedging institutions or, truck manufacturers, whatever it is, and to get the graduates involved at an early stage of their career so that radical collaboration, as Thomas referred to, becomes part of their DNA, I think is going to make a huge difference for the future.
Great. Sinead, do you want to?
From a Veolia perspective, we actually operate a very much a consultation process from the ground up in relation to defining our strategy and for the generation of ideas and those innovative solutions. So it's across the company where we will involve everyone within the organisations, from our grads the right way up, and that's to define and help us determine what our strategy will be. We also have, it's a Critical Friends Committee, which is an outside forum where you're getting collective, I suppose, reflection on what Veolia is doing and on key important issues from a society and a responsibility and environmental responsibility. And within that, you would bring our key stakeholders together, and that would include the younger generation and what we can do, and to make sure that we are on the right track. So we have lots of those initiatives that we use, and all the time challenging ourselves to make sure that we are on the right path, or is there something different that we should do? And we were just talking earlier, again, Veolia has just released this week a survey that it conducted across 25,000 people from 18 up across 25 countries. And a lot of the themes that we've talked about here today are the same. But one of the challenges that's come out, or one of the key findings, is people are struggling to understand what will this ecological transformation, or what will this change look like, that we're all aiming to do. And I think that is important, that when we're talking about what initiatives we're putting in place, that we bring people along in the journey with us.
I think it's a really good point. It's about where are we going to? What's, yes, we know we need to change, but what are we changing to and for? Shay, at BT, how do you, address that with young people, engage them and encourage them?
Well, usually, so we obviously, again, we're in the fight for talent, and what I think what we're trying to demonstrate is that we obviously have a purposeful organisation, and we truly believe the values, and young people will come to look for jobs that have that, so it's we're in the middle of Google Docs, so we have everywhere around us is Google, and the great employee facilities they have and free lunches and everything. So we're in a real fight for talent, a genuine fight. So we have to make sure that when we are lucky enough to get graduates coming into our business, that that they're fully engaged and they're listened to, and that's the main thing. So we do have I sit down with them, my HR director. Sit down with a cohort of them every couple of months, and we listen to them, and we're usually schooled quite well by them. So, but I think the other piece, which is, I suppose, very to try and end on a positive note, is listening to the voices outside of not just the people who work for us, but of the young people across the country. And we're very privileged to run the BT Young Scientists and Technology Exhibition. We have. We just finished we have 1,700 entries, and we have to whittle that down to 550. And of those 550 projects, and actually over the 1,700 projects, nearly 50% of them are focused on, firstly, health and mental health and the environment, and then also separately the climate. So the young people are telling us what needs to happen, and they're showing an interest that needs to be encouraged, but also they are beginning to come up with the technology. They're beginning up with the thought leadership that, frankly, Gen X and the Boomers have failed on, and that I'm certainly in the hopefully just creeped into the Gen X space there. But that ultimately is, you have to listen to those voices and encourage them. And in our boot camp, which we follow on in March, we actually take some of those projects, about 30 of the students, handpick them, and then they go on to try and give them the tools to put those ideas into place.
That's great, and nurturing that all the way through education and into working life.
And please come along to the RDS in January. We're back in. Little plug for it there. If you want to get a shot in the arm in January, just come into that environment, and the enthusiasm is palpable.
That's great, and thanks for that. I'm conscious of the time here, and the clock is going down. Obviously, this morning's theme is very much about collaboration for change. We've talked about collective response, radical collaboration. So I'm going to put a question to the three of you, and I'd ask everyone in the room as well to think about this question. And what do each of you think is the commitment that we as a collective here today need to make?
From my perspective, if you look at what is happening, and again, we've talked about this earlier, like a lot of the challenges that we have is a result of human behavior. And yes, organizations can take the lead, government can make policy, but we all as individuals and collective in this room all need to make some changes. And I suppose the challenge that I would have, and the challenge that I do to myself every day is, well, what one thing could I do differently that'll help us develop a sustainable future? And I think it's those small steps, because it's very easy to sit back and say, well, one thing that I do, if I switch off my light, that's not going to make a difference. But if we all have that mindset, then this journey is going to take even longer. So my challenge is everyone just to think about what small step you can make every day to develop a more sustainable future for us all.
Great, thanks Sinead. Ciaran?
Yeah, I guess the time for commitments and leaving the room today and writing down an even more tougher target to reach is those days are gone, I think. So I think you're right. I think it's about collaboration. It's about doing now. So I would suggest it's about reaching out, because that's not easy to do. I think sometimes it's easy to collaborate, certainly within your business and with your customers. But we're talking about collaboration across the globe, across governments. But for us, I think across business, even with competitors. So probably just reach out today, tomorrow, to anybody who you think can help you with the sustainability journey.
Great. Thanks, Ciaran. Finally, Shay?
I think we didn't really cover it in much detail, but the chief value officer as a concept needs to maybe move from a concept into a reality, and maybe just to have a conversation. If you're a CFO or working with your CFO, have a conversation about what would that look like, and how do we stop just counting the beans and start counting value in the business.
Great. It's a great place to end the panel. I want to thank the three of you so much for your time this morning and for being so open and sharing your experiences as well. So thank you all very much.
Thanks, Mary.